ethnic, whatever you want to call it, we all need support.
Exactly.
We all need support. Unless you're at that level where you're already good, we need support.
Exactly.
And that's if you're having a bad day, that's if you're grieving, that's if you lost someone, that's if you lost your wallet for 5 minutes. That's if someone cuts you off, steps on your toe when you're wearing your new Jordans.
Mm-hmm.
All of that is just an emotional response, which then turns to, hey, do you need support after that emotional experience you just had? Are
Mm.
you okay? Do you have tools to respond to that and instead of react? Or are you just left on an island alone and now 1,000 thoughts are going through your head and you don't know which one to pick?
Mm.
That's why I do the work I do, because as we're talking about not knowing where we're from, not having the opportunities to heal, not seeing each other in these different spaces, except for spaces where we're supposed to wear a smile on our face, shut up and dribble and just score.
Yep.
We, so I have been trying to push back against being the black guy that only can hoop and trying to create spaces where we can heal, because I know it takes a village.
Mm-hmm.
But just like you hit me up, the tribe starts with you. We wouldn't have this if you didn't hit me up. We wouldn't have your podcast if you didn't start it. I wouldn't be able to help athletes and mental skills if I didn't start it. But
Mm-hmm.
I know regardless, because of you hitting me up, because of our conversation now, I know that I have a village. I know I got people that support me even though I haven't met them yet. You got people that support you even though you haven't met them yet. But we must act, and that act starts with us. And so that's why I do the work I do, which is around social emotional health, working with men, working with athletes to uncover emotion. Because at the end of the day, that's all we're working with. We have 20 to 80,000 thoughts per day. Right now in the video, I'm looking at some of your plaques. On my side, I see the window open. I
Yep.
see lights ahead of me. I see my partner right here. We just had a baby. So I
That's
see my son
beautiful.
right here and everything. So all of these things are thoughts,
Yeah.
right? They're thoughts happening right now. And I could get distracted and say, man, what does that plaque say behind her? And
Mm-hmm.
completely lose sight of what we're actually here to do and talk about. And so there are tools that we can use and practice to actually strengthen our mental muscle
Mm-hmm.
to say, hey, I am here, I am now. I'm not distracted by everything behind you. I can see you in your eyes. I'm connecting with you, and let's talk. And that is what I try to do with athletes, and what I do with athletes, but also have been able to expand that into creating a course and a department at Kaiser Permanente in Northern California, specifically around supporting youth and teens in reducing stress through the technique and tools of mindfulness. So it's called Youth and Teen Mindfulness Stress Reduction, and it's at Kaiser Permanente. And I created the course, which now really is a department. It's the only youth and teen department within Kaiser.
Wow.
All of their other health education classes are for adults. So
That's
really created a
amazing.
department to support kids in reducing stress, and would love to promote that, outside of Kaiser, within Kaiser, but then also include athletes as we're talking about and how we've connected,
Mm-hmm.
because as we've discovered through playing the game, sports, whether you play basketball or anything else, being able to show up on time for practice, showing up regularly, having a goal, whether it's to win the next game, make the playoffs, or win a championship, having teamwork, all of these things come together to create an experience that says, hey, you know what? Even if I am super excited about this activity, I am more engaged with life. And being more engaged with life, I'm able to find out who I am And through that, I'm able to thrive because I know who I am and I've had the experience. I've tried it through sport, through going to school, through X, Y, and Z. But all that comes back to mindfulness, which
Yes.
is present moment awareness of the here and now, non-judgmentally, while providing yourself with the kindness and compassion of the experience that's happening.
Mm.
Easily get tied up and things aren't going my way. But if we feel our right foot on the floor and our left foot on the floor, we can say, my right foot is here, my left foot is now, and I can't take them into the past. I can't take them into the future. They are rooted right here, and I feel the ground beneath me support me. So even though I'm uh, overwhelmed, I feel support beneath me, and I can Dorothy this thing like I'm on a yellow brick road and my heel and say, I am here, I am now, let it go, and proceed to take your next step.
That's beautiful, man. You just helped me a lot. Me alone. That's beautiful. In 2 seconds.
Well, you were here for it to catch it. And that is honestly the biggest thing is usually we're so distracted by our own wants, our own intentions that are really society based. But when we think about what do we actually need inside, what fulfills me and what do I need, it's
Yes.
usually listening to ourselves. And the only reason that maybe you got something out of that is because you took the time to listen, to engage and say, how might I be able to use some of what he said, even 1% to help myself in all the vast experiences I've had. And so I appreciate you and thank you for taking the time to even fully hear and listen to me because that's where the connection comes from. And that's why it takes a village.
Yes. You definitely got me when you said society, because I think that is my biggest thing now is how we were talking about earlier, how during our time it was go to school, get a degree, get a job, start a family, blah, 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 blah. Versus now you just pick your phone up and do the most stupidest thing you can to go viral. And I get so caught up in I have to post and I have to be on the schedule with posting, and I have to get on Instagram and I got to get on LinkedIn and I got to get on Snapchat. I don't got to do nothing. Like that's the thing, is I don't have to do anything. And one of the key things that you said was one, being grounded and being in the here and now. And that's something today I literally had to tell myself was nobody is here but me. It's just me right now. Nobody can see me. Nobody's in this room with me. Nobody's in my head with me. Why, am I feeling so anxious? But that, helped me go in. Once I asked myself that question, I really went in there. And it was because I'm so worried about what other people think I should be doing and also where I think I should be. But where I should be is right here. That's it. And another thing was that breath, always taking that breath is so important. That's something I'm focusing on more now too. It's amazing we have this conversation. I'm doing all this stuff right now, so maybe you've been sent divine timing. This focusing on my breath, because I take such shallow breaths because I'm so anxious and always waiting for something bad to happen. So like I'll be waiting for my heart to drop, and I just like never really breathing. Yeah. And I feel so bad for my lungs and my heart now, because I can't imagine, I don't really know anything about the inside of my body, but what they have to go through or the extra work they have to do when I'm not doing a full breath cycle.
I stop you there and I say that you do know what's going on in the inside of your body. We could practice breathing. We could work on that if you wanted to. But the fact that you're having this podcast, the fact that you reached out, I would say comes from an intuitive knowing that you tapped into, probably from understanding your body as an athlete. As we look at the Olympics, I thought it was really interesting to hear all these people get on Simone Biles, to get on Naomi Osaka about wanting to take a step back from competition because of their mental health.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from California, played basketball and sports at UC Berkeley, go Bears. So I'm West Coast. I only share that to say that my West Coast experience has led me to believe, and not only in basketball, I played baseball, football, you can name it. All of my coaches, despite the sport, no matter what age I was, and definitely as I got up in age, always said that as you get better, mental is 90% of the game, physical is 10% of the game. So it's extremely interesting to see the backlash that Olympians are getting as we talk about the quote unquote best athletes in the world who should know their craft, who should know their body, mind and body of what it takes to be the best in the world. Yet we are criticizing them, putting them down, and saying, hey, even though we told you your entire life, sports is 90% mental, 10% physical, the fact that you are taking the autonomy and the empowering yourself to say, hey, I'm going to listen to my 90% and follow it, which means I'm going to protect myself and step out, is crazy, because it's just showing I don't want to get that deep, but it's like,
Go ahead, Carl, speak your truth.
Level of respect within sports when we see not too many, I'm going back to basketball again, not too many coaches that are Black. Now, the last month, we've seen 6 to 9 coaches that are Black get promoted. So making me eat my words a little bit. However, the history is, you tell us one thing from a different race, white men telling a 90%, 95% league, it's 90-10. Just do it, Nike says. Yet when the athlete says, I'm empowered to take that 90%, you said it's 90%. Well, my 90% said I'm probably running on 80%. And if I'm gonna be doing backflips, I need 100%. So I'm out. Now we get to talk down on that athlete, make fun of them, say they're not prepared, and how dare you step down on the largest stage when that is the most popular, most qualified, most intuitive athlete in the world. So now why are we now second guessing their talent? So it was just very interesting to see as we talk about mental health, awareness, but also including athletics.
Now that you say that, did you notice a difference between when like Kevin Love came out, DeMar DeRozan, Michael Phelps, and then now Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka?
I did not notice something, and this is the first time I'm being asked this question, so now I'm reflecting. And I think the difference is the fact that Simone, Naomi, they dropped out. They didn't compete, rather than writing a letter when I've already competed. I've shown my face that I can do it, but then on the back end, I wrote a letter saying I was just putting up a front. Versus the women who are saying, I don't have time to front. I'm gonna keep it real right now, and this is what it is. So I didn't really necessarily think about that until this question right now, but I would say that seems like a stark difference as the men spoke about it while continuing to play and spoke about it afterwards, like, hey, this is something that's important and I want to shine light on this because this happened to me, which is great. On the other hand, the women decided to take an action, and the action was their letter versus writing the letter. And I think there's a lot to say about that transition, because it's very easy to talk about things, but then where is the action? And something that is very apparent to me these days is like, especially on the West Coast, being California and San Francisco Bay Area, there was a time where we would create t-shirts for the ones we lost. And we
Mm,
would rock a t-shirt, RIP.
mm-hmm.
And as I think about that, where are we today when we lose someone? People are in the streets, we're protesting, but who's protesting? It's not the people that want that think there needs to be change and can actually affect the change. It's the people that have no power asking for change.
Mm-hmm.
So my next thought becomes, how do we create change versus just talking about it? So to your point and your question around the difference between Kevin Love, DeMar DeRozan, and what's happening as of late in the Olympics, I would say that the Olympics has created change in the form of action, physical action. I'm not participating, I'm not interviewing. Now that is the story versus the story being, I wrote a letter to the basketball community, and yes, I have mental health and I have challenges, and this is real, so please listen to it and donate to this fund. Versus, I just walked away because I need to take care of myself. So
Yeah,
you guys figure out the rest of what needs to happen during my interview, because I'm over here taking self-care. And
that's
so
good.
I would say the difference is action versus the talking. And I started with the t-shirt because it went from representation of the t-shirt to talking to now we're straight action.
Yeah, I love it. I didn't even look at it like that. So that's a great perspective, and I really appreciate you offering that. I was looking at it as, I feel like Naomi Osaka and Simone, while yeah, a lot of people were against it and was loud and wrong or whatever you want to say about it, I feel like they were way more accepted, and especially because they are women versus as men, you are a very rare one. Y'all don't want to talk about feelings. You don't want to talk about emotions, about your thoughts. None of that. I just had a guy on yesterday actually, and he was saying that exact thing, is that as a man, he doesn't want to, you know, seem weak or whatever the case is. He's also 21, so he has some growing up to do. But I still think that men, my dad is a great example. He's 60. He act like he don't have feelings. So I that's my opinion, is that it was more acceptable still, um, and even praised more maybe than with the men, because it's like, yeah, people were paying attention, and like you said, they have these funds and these different apps and stuff that they're partnering with now, the NBA guys and Michael Phelps. Yet I still think nobody's talking about them and other men's mental health nearly as much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess to that point, I would say that I had a conversation with an NBA executive a few years ago. This is before the mental health thing started. This is before the Me Too movement. And, I shared that I was doing mental health, behavioral health, mindfulness with student athletes. And he basically laughed. And I was like, what do you think about this on the NBA level? And he just laughed, cracked up at me like, we can find another guy that's ready to get in here and work, forget all that mental health, emotional stuff. And we're still in contact, and to have a conversation with him today, he is all about the mental health and the mindfulness and you know, he even mentioned a time where he felt like his team had young players and they saw beginning to see themselves in commercials, and now thinking, I'm the man, so I need to now be the man since I'm on commercials, versus continuing the path which got them to be that quote unquote man. And just that transition and him seeing that is like, I can see they're egotistical, they're no longer humble, and they're trying to play their own game versus the team game. They're trying to live up to the society and what is expected and what the commercials are saying, instead of winning the game as a team, as they were even last season, even a few weeks ago before this commercial came out.
Mm-hmm.
So he understands now of the mental power and toughness that it can take, because we can easily be distracted by 80 to 20,000 things that take us down a rabbit hole, when we're really supposed to be grabbing that rebound, pump faking, and going right back up, getting contact. As I mentioned, what was that? The 2017 finals between the Warriors and the Cavs, when J.R. Smith gets the rebound, doesn't know what time it is.
Oh man. We would have been fighting on the court.
LeBron had just hit a three. He had 51 points. All he had to do, pump fake, go up, get contact, you're to the free throw line. Pump fake, kick it back out to wide open LeBron, who had just hit a three. But we're not here. We're not checked in.
That's Henny JR right there. He was too lit. Man.
So, I mean, JR is just one example. And the closest one to me, since I'm a Warriors fan and follow LeBron James, but that is the work. And that's how it shows up, by not having that slip.
Mm-hmm.
When Kevin Garnett wins his championship in Boston, you remember what he yells out?
No, what'd he say?
He yells out and he's like, anything is possible. Remember that?
Yes. Matter of fact, I had the poster. I thought we all had that poster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Say that one more time.
What was he supposed to say?
That's a good shit. Well, what he supposed to say?
He was endorsed by Adidas. Adidas at that time, their big advertisement. Impossible is nothing.
He said anything is possible.
Impossible is nothing. That was their moment. We won. Impossible is nothing. But he was too caught up in the emotion and said anything is possible. He had one job if they win for Adidas. Just say our tagline, please. So as we talk about taglines, as we talk about the Olympics, one of my friends said, why do you think Nike says just do it? You can't just drop out the Olympics. What do you think would happen to LeBron if he stepped out of the Olympics for Team USA? He'd be crucified. You cannot do that. That is why Nike is just do it.
You're getting real deep.
Now, what is Nike's changing their tune to? If you've seen the most recent Nike slogan, it's play new. It's no longer just do it, because how do you just do it? I'm Giannis Antetokounmpo. It's the NBA Finals. I just airballed a free throw, but I just got paid a large contract. There's no defense. I'm airballing a free throw. So how does that work? Mentally, we're not there.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you just do it? How do you just recover from an airball free throw when everyone's watching? We always say just do it, but we don't teach how to do it.
That's real. That's where you come in at.
And that's where I come in at. Exactly. So that's where mindfulness comes in.
Yeah. So describe to us.
Present moment, non-judgmentally, and adding care and compassion to whatever the experience is, so that we can kind of create the conditions to put a half step forward. So we don't even need to make this second shot, Giannis. Just hit rim. Just hit rim. Let's take a breath. Let's take a step back. You get 10 seconds to shoot a free throw. Why are you rushing? Because you hear the crowd counting down. We can use that as a rhythm. So mindfulness is a perspective, and there's so many opportunities to be within it, or we get taken by it, and that's when we're in reaction mode. And when we're in reaction mode, even when we mean our best, even when we win a championship, even when we've practiced behind the scenes, we say, anything is possible. No. Impossible is nothing. That's why you got the Adidas deal. But there goes that chance.
How, though, could you teach somebody to be, I guess you could say, focused on that in that kind of moment? Like, I feel like, I just won an NBA championship. I don't really care about nothing right now. I would have messed up too. So how could he, for, and it only took a split second, right? How could he, for that split second, just turn it on, and then he could have turned it right back off? How would you have coached him in that moment?
Well, there's time between there's time between the end of the clock and him making that announcement. He was holding the trophy. He had already hugged people. Love you, man. We did it. Da, da, da. Adidas guy gotta be there. Let him know right there. You got Adidas put money on the line to endorse him. So that's taking a chance to say, hey, he's got it. But to your question, is there time to make a correction? Is there time to tap in with him? Is there time to say something to him? Yes, there was. And so we take that time if we're investing that type of endorsement. But if I myself, Adidas rep, if I myself, whoever, agent, is caught up in that moment and now I'm reactive, then we all forgot. But that is why mindfulness is a practice. We all go to the gym to lift weights. Mindfulness is the lifting the weights for the mind. And so when we do get distracted, then we know that we're distracted. We know that bench press just fell on our neck. That's how we know. Because you just said anything is possible. So what you're talking about is, how do we slow down?
Basically.
And
in
how
that kind of moment, though, that's like, come on, he just won the championship. You can't expect him to do nothing right at that point in time.
Is that true, or do we practice for that as athletes? I mean, you're a McDonald's All-American. When the clock is running down, are you managing do you know how to manage the game? Or are you just saying, well, I got this free shot, I'm gonna take it? No. Or I can pull it back out. Let's set up the offense because we got some time. We're up. So let's go ahead and make a smart one. Another example off the court. When you are crossing the street, do you just run out into the street?
Sometimes it depends on how fast the cars is coming. No, I'm playing. No.
I mean, even with that example, I love that you said that, because what the crux of that statement is, depends. Depends, which means you took a second, a half a second, a split second to say, how fast is it going? Can I make it? Which is the pause.
That's real.
And so what we're trying to do with mindfulness and mental skills, and what I teach, is how to create that pause in each moment of our life. because we're already mindful masters. We already know what we're doing. We already have saved our life a million times. We didn't just walk out into the street and get hit because just felt like crossing right now. I didn't care if cars were coming. We stop, we look both ways, we take a breath, we observe, and then we peacefully proceed, which is actually what a stop sign stands for. Stop, take a breath, observe, proceed peacefully.
I need to write that down.
And we do that every single day, but we don't do that when someone steps on our Jordans in the club. I just bought these fresh Jordans. How dare you step on them? So we don't practice everyday life every day. But how many of your teammates over the years have done finished some milk, finished a sandwich and crumpled up the napkins and said 3, 2, 1. We're practicing.
Yeah.
We're practicing, right? But then when we look at NCAA games, and then like Jalen, what was his name? Jalen Suggs from Gonzaga.
Mm-hmm.
He hits the shot and then what? Runs over like Kobe, jumps on the broadcast stand. Yeah. Now that was more of a celebration, like I meant to do that a little bit. Most of the time in March Madness, when we see that, it's like, oh my God, he hit the shot. But is it, oh my God? Because you just said right now, we already 3, 2, 1 are garbage. So in our bodies, we are practicing that even from a youngster.
Man.
So it's not to be a surprise when it happens on the big stage. We've been practicing this for life as hoop fans. But we don't practice for someone to bump into us on accident as we're getting off the bus. We think that's, you're doing that on purpose. So now I got a big man up you and punk you to make you feel a certain way. And now, again, it's just an emotional response that we did not practice, yet we practiced the 3, 2, 1 and feel great about it as if it was an excitement, as it was a surprise in a game. No. You've been practicing that. Act like you've been there before.
That's real. Tell me about the impact that you've seen your presence have on the people that you help.
So I guess it would just, the quick answer would just be freedom. Just understanding that I have more freedom. I am not bound by what society deems for me, and that I have a choice in my experience. A lot of times we feel like we have to respond or react to something. This happened to me, I'm reacting to it. Someone talked dirty to me, someone talked wrong to me, I'm disrespected, so I get to beat them up because I feel in my body I'm upset and I feel my fist getting strong, so that must mean I need to fight. What mindfulness provides is that curiosity and the kindness to the entire situation. So you can still be upset, you can still curl that fist. But then we add the curiosity and kindness and say, I'm interested in my experience that just happened. Why did that happen? And then if I add kindness to that, maybe that person didn't do that to me on purpose. And even if they did, maybe they're going through something that has nothing to do with me. So I can create 2 storms, one for them, one for me, and I guess a third one with both of us combined, and now we're interacting, having an issue. Or I can stop and be mindful, which is awareness of mind and body with an attitude of curiosity and kindness, and say, you know what, I don't need to further engage and hurt my mental health because this person got their toe stepped on at home when I wasn't even there.
How can we go from being reactive and feeling like we always have to defend ourselves, to, like you said, being able to take that pause and, hey, you know what, it ain't even that deep. Let me go ahead and keep on about my day. How do you go from reactive to I can take that pause?
Practice.
But where do you start with the practice though?
Everything I'm saying is very cognitive. It sounds like, oh, I could do that. Just take a little time, whatever. Oh, just give it a few minutes and then don't say anything. But we actually feel it in our bodies, so we do act. And so it takes practice. Can practice over time. Just like as athletes, we go to the gym, we pump the weights, we get our shots up. I needed to get 1,000 jumpers up. How many mindful minutes have you had?
It's deep. A lot of people probably zero.
How many moments have you taken to say, you know what? I just walked through a new door. I'm going to acknowledge that I walked through a new door. And maybe this is a new opportunity. That last energy was kind of funky. I'm walking through a new door. Even if it's just the room to your room door, from the bathroom and back or something. How many times do you pass that door? And each time you pass that door is an opportunity to change your energy. And that energy change, hopefully seeing the glass half full while still acknowledging it may be half empty. We don't want to just say, oh, it's just half full all the time. It may be half empty, and we need to acknowledge that to know where we are at. But we still want to be able to see the glass half full so that we can take a step and not get paralyzed into isolation.
So why public health and behavioral health in the first place? For you
said, why do we need that?
No, why did you study that in the first place? Like, what made you go to school for that, especially undergrad? Like, what made you go to school for public health?
So actually, that was chosen for me, actually. I came into UC Berkeley as a biochemistry major my freshman year, took all biochem classes, wanted to be a crime scene investigator, and then actually walked onto the basketball team. So I was a walk-on, I wasn't scholarship. And so when I walked on, I could no longer take the chem classes, the biology classes. We had labs from 9 to 12. Then we had classes. So my schedule could not afford. It was either you're going to be a CSI and you're going to give up your dreams of playing college sports, or you're going to do college sports and forget about CSI for now, or maybe come back to it.
Wow.
So for me, I decided sports. Luckily, I had a professor that supported me. And even after the ad drop deadline, he said, hey, I have a friend in public health. I know your journey of trying to make the team. I'm happy you made it. I support you. I'll see if he'll allow you in the class after this ad deadline.
That's awesome.
I got accepted into the class. The professor was super exuberant and excited about teaching public health, which to me at the time was like, hey, wash your hands, use a condom, environmental health matters, like don't live around freeways. So it was like, wow, you get a degree for this stuff? This is awesome. Like I was just doing like chemicals and labs and so it's interesting to see where we're at now as we talk about public health versus the economy.
Yeah.
We just need to wash our hands to get out of this pandemic, and that's been an issue. Right. But that's how I got into public health, was starting with the hardcore science. And because I had all that hardcore science, public health classes were able to allow me to finish on time. Okay. So because I had so much science-based, public health was a lot of science as well. I just had to add on a few little public health classes, but still was able to graduate on time based on having that science root.
That's awesome. So then why behavioral? You went back to school, right? You say you
Yeah.
have 3 degrees, so we can like rehab that whole conversation. I got some of it on the phone, but I don't have it all on the video. So, what are your other 2 degrees in, and why did you go get those?
So public health was undergrad. I followed prestige for a little bit. When I was coming out, public health was not offering that much in salary as to what I thought after having a degree. But all my friends in business school were coming out 80, 90, 100,000. It's like, wait, what? How it was saying what? Uh,
Wow.
and that's particularly when, I distinctly remember Merrill Lynch CEO buying a gold toilet at that time. And so it was like, man, that's the kind of money they're playing with. He has a gold toilet in his office. So I got distracted by prestige and money and worked in finance for a few years, worked at your big name companies, Genentech, Google, things like that.
Wow.
And then just found like, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm chasing the money. I have it. I'm here. I'm able to travel, got to see different parts of the world, but it just didn't feel fulfilling. And now here I am trying to support others in holistically living and thriving and finding ways to reduce stress with the understanding that, hey, we all have bad days. So if we have a bad day, we can either, like I was doing in college, go to the gym and just hoop and forget about it, or just go to sleep and say, when I wake up, hopefully it's gone. And
Man.
knowing that there's got to be some support in between those extremes, went to behavioral health. Didn't want to get a master's in public health because I already did public health. So behavioral health was a new subject at the time that was kind of coming of age. So I thought, hey, they're kind of similar. I'll do behavioral health. And that was particularly because I experienced coaching at the junior college level, where we made it to the California State Final Four. In that game, it was tied at halftime. We were down by 1 with 2 minutes to go in the second half, ended up losing by 11. So
Wow.
after watching the team all year, seeing how that game played out, it was very apparent that we had physical talent. We just didn't have the mental capacity to harness what was needed in the intensity of the game, which was the last 2 minutes. And I found that particularly interesting because intensity for me, as I think about it as an athlete, I would think you would just call that competition. So if my athletes aren't able to compete in the last 2 minutes, like what are we doing?
Exactly. Why they even there?
Yeah. So that's what led me to behavioral health, because behavioral health is the integration of mental health and physical health. And how do we combine those to create our behavior? And so seeing the physical health, seeing them playing the game, but then understanding their mental health and where some of the players were at mentally throughout the season from learning more about them, it was just a perfect timing for me to study behavioral health and to learn about that as a discipline and to take that as the next step from public health. So that's how I got into behavioral health. And from that, entering that program, I decided I'm going to focus on 3 parts: masculinity, health, and sports, with mindfulness being the health behavior change tool. So really focused on masculinity, mindfulness, and sports, and how do those connect, and how can I support athletes in mental health so that they can actually thrive and be in that intensity, which I would call competition. So that program led me to a 1-year program at um, in Spain and Taiwan, where I did international business, entrepreneurial business. And I was really interested in that because I got to learn actual mindfulness from the Eastern perspective being in Taiwan, not just the Western perspective of do 5 minutes of breathing in the morning and then you're mindful.
Yeah.
actually learn what it meant to be mindful. How do you do it? Join, international meditation groups, mindfulness groups, worked with Rinpoches, picked up Tai Chi, Qigong, and now lead Tai Chi and Qigong practices, created my own practice that
Wow.
includes Tai Chi, Qigong, traditional stretching, and some yoga that I now share with athletes and the teams I work with, so that we can connect mind to body and have that full understanding. So as much as it was about business being out there, there was very much a behavioral health component to being overseas and being a Black man overseas in Taiwan, in Spain, where I didn't see anyone like me unless they were Africans
Mm-hmm.
from Africa or Americans here and there that were studying out there like me, which was few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really gave me an opportunity to reflect on what I'm interested in, how I want to go about it, and allowed me the autonomy to kind of create my own studies within this experience, which has led me to really focus on healthy relationships and using the tool of design thinking, which leans on empathy, and the tool of trying, which is really what we do as athletes. They call it design thinking in business school. And the very same thing in athletics would be, here's an idea. Who's our opponent that we're playing against? What is their empathy? How do we have empathy for them? Meaning, how do we attack them?
Yep.
Now let's go to practice and try to break down their defense and offense.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's have a scrimmage and try it. And the last part is, let's go out there and try it against the real thing. And those are basically the 5 steps of what I learned in business school. And it's really interesting to hear, like, this is that big business school concept, yet this is what folks are doing on a daily. You have a hypothesis, you listen to your audience or your target, you figure out what the need is and identify it, give it a prototype, then you actually try it. And that's actually what athletes do. We look at our competition, we study them, we go back to the drawing board, work on our own game, adapt a few things, then we try it in scrimmage, and then it's game time, which is the prototype. And then either we win or we lose, and then we go back to the drawing board to perfect it even more. So that's how everything really connected for me, is through behavior, through business, learning how to design experiences, which is truly what mindfulness is about. How do we meet people where they're at, no matter where they're at, physically and emotionally, and then design an experience, rather curated experience, that allows them to thrive.
You have so much experience, and that is so freaking cool and awesome, and especially because you're able to utilize it all. So my last question for you, which is, it's different than what my original last question was, is what advice would you have for someone who, let's say one of your student athletes, they're about to graduate from college and they have, the world in front of them right now. They could maybe continue, their playing career professionally. They could go on to grad school. They could become an entrepreneur, whatever it is. How would you, I guess, what advice would you give them when they're making decisions? Because like me, for example, I want to do everything. I have so many dreams, and I'm 28 and I still know that I'm going to accomplish all my dreams and goals. I know this. And, modeling is one of them. Being a video vixen is one of them, because thick girls is hot right now. So I need to, shine while I can before I start having kids.
Speaking into reality.
Yeah, so before I start having kids, I got to rip the runway one time, being a Megan Thee Stallion video. I got all these dreams and goals. I got the podcast going. I got a clothing line I still want to relaunch. Even having kids is a goal, right? So yeah, we have all these things in front of us. How do you tell a maybe 21, 22-year-old kid, like, what would you tell them at that moment when they are about to step out?
It's a great question, because as the As someone that is a mindfulness professional and practitioner, I find I find that the present moment is the only moment we have. That being said, I think my intuitive nature is to look ahead and to plan and to make sure that, hey, I'm not making a false step that may hurt me. You know, going back to our beginning conversation of like knowing who we are and where we stand,
Yep.
making that right kind of decision so we're not in a compromised one. And so, personally, balancing that by leaning in on the practice that I've cultivated through forest bathing, taking walks in nature, walking my dog, having a habitual meditation practice, having a routine mindfulness practice, which could just mean noticing my breath when I step outside, saying, hey, I just passed through a door. All right, this is a new opportunity, maybe.
Mm.
Noticing my foot on the floor and saying, oh, I just took a next step. I can hold on to that negativity or release it on that step. What advice would I give to a new student who is, or not a new graduate who is, has their entire life before them? One thing that stood out to me that you said is might be interested in continuing their career overseas. I mean, I almost stopped listening after you said that because I think that is the most mindful thing you can do. And maybe you can agree to that, maybe give me a hard disagree, but when you travel, that is the utmost mindful thing I believe you can do. I think if you were to close your eyes or if you were to lose one of your senses, be put on a plane and then dropped off anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
you could sense that you are somewhere else. Whether you could smell it, if you lost your eyesight, you could smell it, you could hear it, you could feel it. If you had your eyesight, you could see it. You know, if you lost any sense, you would still know, like, oh, I'm not at home. I can feel something that's telling me this is different.
Mm-hmm.
That difference, I would say, is learning. If you can notice that there's a difference, I would say that is learning. And if you've learned something, I would say that you've grown.
Definitely.
So as I get older, I feel like the more moments where we have opportunity to burst our own bubble and to grow and to get out of that comfort zone that we think is comfortable, I would say that would be my first recommendation. If you have the opportunity to travel, go do it. Who knows what you're going to see, what you will experience, what will happen, but guess what? It will be different than
Mm-hmm.
what you're used to. And that gives you more empathy for others, which allows you to connect with others, which allows you to have a more fulfilling life in general, because you're not confined by saying, hey, I'm from Alabama. There's no gay people out here and I hate gay people. Because you've now stepped out of Alabama and said, hey, I met someone that is gay
Mm-hmm.
and they're normal just like me.
Yep.
And I didn't know that until I stepped out that bubble. But now I know, and now I'm more comfortable in that world, which is really one world that we're all living in.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say lean in on the travel. I would lean in on experience. I would lean on, when I was in college, I was like, man, I'm ready to get out of here.
Yeah.
Tired of exams. I want to make money. I know what I'm doing. Like, pay me. And I would say slow that roll and experience. And I don't know what experiences may lead you to, but if you're open, then you don't know what doors may open for you.
I was gonna ask you, if was anything else you wanted to say, but you can't say nothing else after that. That was too good. I can't even say nothing else, man. All I'll say is I 1000% agree. Traveling did change my life. I didn't even look at it as empathy, but that is what it made me, was way more empathetic for people, way more understanding, patient even, and just a willingness to take risks, not being afraid of anything. Because once you hop on that plane and you agree to do something different and you agree to go somewhere else, that's a risk right there. Once you get there and you live there, whatever it is, like, that's tough. And so after you do that, it ain't nothing else to be afraid of. So I 1000% agree with what you said. And, you know, there, to me, there is no wrong decision. They just all come with consequences, good or bad. So whatever you want to do, just do it. And if you don't like it, you can do something else. That's a beautiful thing about it. There are no wrong decisions. So thank you, Jason. You're awesome, man. I love having you. You are beautiful. You're so kind, very intelligent. I love talking to you, and I would absolutely love to stay in touch.
Yeah, please do. And thank you for having me. And, one word that you just said that sticks out is consequences. And I think those, the consequences that show up and that we feel are usually only the ones that are like, man, I was not living as authentic as I should.
Man.
And that's the consequence. And the consequence then comes, how do I get back to feeling whole and thriving? And that's always going to be on the circumference of that bubble that we're in.
Yeah, that's real. Jason, thank you. I appreciate it. And you can also be another guest. You can be a guest again if you want to, a recurring guest, whatever you want. I love having you.
Would love to. Would love to. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for reaching out and making this happen.
Absolutely.